Arcadian Vanguard presents the Wrestling News in your daily wrestling newscast for Sunday, February 16th, 2025. Good morning, I'm Mike Sempervive. We begin today with NXT Vengeance Day, presented live last night on Peacock and internationally on Netflix from the Care First Arena in Washington, D.C. In the main event, Julia retained the NXT Women's Championship, pinning Roxanne Perez in a fatal four-way that also included Cora Jade and Bayley.
Another elimination to Perez! Looking around, realizing everyone's down for the Northern Lights. Bah! Is this it? Julia into the cover to retain her title. Wow! Just wow!
Obafemi retained his NXT Championship in a triple threat with both members of A-Town Down Under, pinning Grayson Waller after Waller accidentally laid out his partner, Austin Theory. After the match, Femi was sneak attacked by a crew of WWE trainees with Dion Lennox mentioned by name. That same crew also attacked all four participants of the NXT Tag Team title match earlier in the night, immediately after Axiom and Nathan Frazier retained the belts against Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura. In the opening match, Stephanie Vaquer won her first title in WWE, defeating Fallon Henley for the NXT Women's North American Championship and becoming WWE's first South American-born title holder.
Spiral tap! Cover! Validation for Vaquer!
Wow.
In other results, Ethan Page pinned Javon Evans and Eddie Thorpe won a strap match against Trick Williams. It was also announced on the show that Ricky Starks would officially be signing his NXT contract on Tuesday's program on the CW. AEW presented the 2025 edition of Grand Slam Collision yesterday on TNT and Max, featuring matches taped earlier in the day at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre in Brisbane, Australia. Toni Storm captured the AEW World Women's title for a record-setting fourth time in the main event, pinning Mariah May and ending her title reign at 174 days. In the opening match, Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay teamed up for the first time in their careers and defeated the team of Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. In a Brisbane brawl, AEW World Champion Jon Moxley teamed with his Death Rider stablemate Claudio Castagnoli to defeat Adam Copeland and Jay White with some outside assistance from Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir. In other results, Kazuchika Okada retained the Continental title against Buddy Matthews, and Mercedes Moné successfully defended the TBS Championship against Harley Cameron. In WWE news, the company has named Road Dogg Brian James as the co-lead writer of SmackDown, according to Mike Johnson. James joins John Swicata, who has been the head writer for SmackDown since late July. And we close with some unfortunate news. Pioneering Japanese wrestler Hiroaki Hamada, best known in wrestling as Gran Hamada, passed away yesterday in San Luis Potosi, Mexico at the age of 74, as was first reported by local news outlets. Generally regarded as the first Japanese wrestler to embrace the high-flying lucha libre style and make his name in Mexico, Hamada debuted as one of the first dojo trainees of New Japan Pro Wrestling in 1972, but was sent to Mexico in 1975 to compete for the UWA and EMLL promotions due to his relatively small size. Although known as Little Hamada in Japan, standing only 5'6", in Mexico he became a standout and became known as El Gran Hamada. He held the NWA middleweight title in EMLL, and during his many stints in the UWA in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, he captured numerous championships in numerous weight classes, including 2 light heavyweight titles, 5 junior light heavyweight titles, 3 middleweight titles, and 1 welterweight title. Hamada was even a 2-time holder of the WWF light heavyweight title in the early 1980s, during a time when the WWF had a working agreement with the UWA. The UWA also worked closely with Mike LaBelle's Hollywood Wrestling territory in Los Angeles, where Hamada briefly held the America's heavyweight title in 1981. In later years, he became a promoter, establishing and running the Universal Lucha Libre promotion from 1990 to 1995, bringing Mexican-style wrestling to Japan. In 1997, he appeared on ECW's first pay-per-view event, Barely Legal, teaming with the Great Sasuke and Masato Yakushiji to defeat the future Kaientai. Towards the end of his career, he spent time wrestling in All Japan as well as smaller Japanese promotions such as Mikinoshu Pro. He had his final match in 2018. Once again, Gran Hamada has passed away at the age of 74. And before we leave you today, we'd like to remind you that however you consume your content, you can find the wrestling news 24 hours a day and 7 days a week across social media. On Twitter, follow us at Wrestling News AV. Our Facebook page is also Wrestling News AV. The Wrestling News can also be found on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube page. And for those who utilize Amazon Echo devices, just tell Alexa to play the Wrestling News podcast. And remember to make sure you add podcast at the end. Once again, for daily updates, breaking news, and more, follow the Wrestling News across social media. And that's the news for today. If anything happens, we will be here to tell you about it. No clickbait, no paywall, just the Wrestling News. The Wrestling News is a division of Arcadian Vanguard, and the Wrestling Newscast is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.